So, well, firstly, thank you very much for the invitation to speak here today. It's always a pleasure to talk about the UK's AI ecosystem. And it's a very timely moment, I think, to be talking about it as well, because there's lots of change happening. Obviously, we have a new government in the United Kingdom, and we have a new strategy around artificial intelligence that is coming, is going to be launched in the next month or so, I think. So it's a very interesting time and a good time to be talking about artificial intelligence and the UK. So I'm going to give a little bit of background on the AI sector within the UK, how big it is, and how important it is to the United Kingdom economy. And then I'm going to go on to talk a little bit around why the UK is a fantastic place to scale and grow and scale an AI business. And then I'm going to finish with a little bit of a forward look in terms of what might be happening over the next few years with the new government with regards to artificial intelligence. And then there'll probably be a little bit of time for questions at the end. So I hope that's okay with everybody. So just to start here,
sorry for the interruption, but I think you are moving in the slides, but we cannot see the progress. So maybe you can stop screen sharing and start it again.
Okay. Well, the alternative is I think you have my slides, so I'm happy for you to.
Maybe you can share your entire screen so we can avoid the presentation mode kind of problems.
Okay, let me go back and share my screen again. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen here?
And is it full screen now?
Is this full screen?
No, not again. I think we are having the same problem.
Okay, no problem. Let me try again.
Maybe I can help you to share your screen.
If you have my slides there, then
I will. Okay, I
I
have.
might be looking from one screen to the other because I have got because there's some statistics that have literally come out in the last week or so. So I just want to make sure that I'm giving everyone the latest information.
Okay, I guess this one is.
Apologies, everybody else. Okay, great.
Okay.
Cool. So we've gone to the next slide. So this is just, I think, encapsulates in one sentence why the UK is a fantastic place to scale an AI company. So it offers a well-connected ecosystem comprised of world-leading companies and research institutions, together with fantastic funding opportunities supported by an exceptional talent pool. So during the course of the next few minutes together, we'll go through some of those elements, but I think this is a really good summary of the UK and the artificial intelligence ecosystem. So if you want to pop to the next slide. So here's some statistics for you. So the artificial intelligence sector in the UK is one of the largest in the world. In fact, it's ranked third in terms of size. It's going to be worth almost £1 trillion over the next decade. And there's a couple of tables there in terms of rankings. So first you've got the Government Readiness Index, which is basically an index that shows how ready governments are to implement, use artificial intelligence within the services that they implement. And you can see there that the United Kingdom is third behind the United States and Singapore. So there was 193 governments across the globe that were surveyed by Oxford Insights as part of this work. Interestingly, Turkey ranked 47, I think, within that list. So one of the sort of top tier countries, definitely. And it looks at three pillars around government and how ready government is. It looks around technology, and it looks around the openness of data and infrastructure. The other index there is a broader index. So this is showing the country as a whole and where it is globally in terms of AI capability, comparative to other countries. So here you can see the UK is actually in 4th place. And this looks at a number of different things across how much AI is implemented, how much talent there is, what the data infrastructure is like, a whole load of different factors. In fact, the latest version of this has just come out. I didn't have quite time to update the slides, but the top 4 are the same, but France is now in at number 5. So I think one point to say here is that although the UK is very high in these rankings, particularly if you're looking at the global AI index, the United States and China are significantly ahead of the rest of the world. So there's no room to be complacent. And I also think this is a narrative that encourages more collaboration within Europe. So between the UK and Turkey, for example, working together as countries, I think if we're looking at global competition, the competition from the US and China is very significant. So I think although the UK is performing well, I think there's no room for complacency, certainly if you look at how the size of China and the size of the United States in terms of what they're doing. So if you want to go on to the next slide. So this is looking specifically around investment. So this is something that I'll talk about a little bit more as we go through the presentation. But the UK has a very strong story around the amount of money that is available for companies that want to grow and scale. And it's the best place to raise money outside of Silicon Valley. And actually for early stage companies, so seed stage, it's on a par with Silicon Valley, I think, in terms of certainly the amount of the number of fundraisers that are done relative to the size of the country. And just again, there's some stats that have just come out for last quarter. So the chart here looks at up to 2023. But if we look into Q2 2024, actually a record amount of money was raised in the UK for AI companies, so over £1 billion worth of investment. And just to give you a flavour on how that's split, so there is a strong London bias towards where money is raised, and there's an area called the Golden Triangle that includes London, Cambridge and Oxford, and within that sector, that accounted for over half of the amount of money that was raised in that record-breaking £1 billion quarter in Q2 this year. And if we're looking at the stage of companies that attract investment, so not on total deal size, but on just the number of deals that were done, over half of those deals were done at seed stage. So again, if you're looking to raise money at a relatively early stage, then the UK is as good as anywhere in the world, I would say, to raise money. If you're looking where the US comes into its own, I think is when we're looking at bigger raises, and those sort of stage C, stage D sort of fundraisers, the really, really large ones tend to happen in the States. But for growing and scaling a company at the early stage, the UK has a fantastic story. So go on to the next slide, please. So again, without sort of throwing too many numbers at you, there's a report that came out literally last week from my colleagues in the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology, known as DSIT. And if you want to look it up, it's publicly available. It's called the Artificial Intelligence Sector Study 2023. And it will give you as much information as you could possibly want around the numbers behind the UK AI sector. So I've just picked out a couple of those because we could talk about those numbers probably for an hour or so, but I've just picked out a couple that I thought were interesting. So this is sort of aggregate numbers on the number of companies and the amount of revenue generated and the number of people employed within the UK AI sector. So just to give you a sort of order of magnitude, really. So you can see just under 65,000 people in employment in AI-specific companies in the UK, revenues of 14.2 billion, and around just 3,700 AI companies. So if you base capability in the UK, if you have maybe an artificial intelligence centre of excellence in the UK, as I know a lot of companies from other countries have done, you'll be in a community, a vibrant community of companies. So yeah, and within the domestic market within the UK is pretty strong. So a little stat as well I put in this slide: 74% of respondents pointed to developing AI products as a key part of their future growth strategy. So just go on to the next slide, please. So this, I appreciate, be quite difficult to read, but I can talk you through it. So this is a slide that's showing how collaborative the AI community is within the UK. So this was a survey that was done looking at 130 different companies, and how the sort of 27 largest dedicated AI companies were collaborating. And this collaboration is not just between companies, but it also looked at academic institutions like the University of Cambridge, Oxford, University of Bristol, University of Warwick, alongside large companies like HSBC, AIG in the insurance sector, large retailers like Asda, online retailers like Ocado, and also government institutions like the National Health Service, but also government-funded bodies like the BBC, and also organisations like the Department of Transport. So collaboration is rife within the UK, and it's very sector specific for each company. But if you're in, for example, engineering or bioscience, or if you're in financial services, if you're in healthcare, there will be all sorts of means that you can collaborate with both academic institutions and government institutions. So go on to the next slide, please. So I'm going to talk briefly now about the three key parts from my perspective, the key bits of the UK AI offer that are really attractive for companies wanting to come over here. So we've touched on some of these, so I won't dwell too much. So we've talked a little bit about talent. So the UK has a very, very strong talent base around AI. It has very strong clusters of universities. And on this slide, you can see some of them here grouped by different types of AI activity. So the universities tend to specialize in particular areas of AI. So, for example, Imperial's great around health, as is UCL, University of Leeds. The NHS Data Lab is based in Leeds, so that's one of the reasons why the university in Leeds is so strong. And this is not only the specific doctoral centres, so this is looking at where AI is studied at PhD level, but the UK also has a very strong story around technical apprenticeships, so that there may be the lower level of skill, or the people are starting their career. And also there's a really good actually availability of all this other types of skill that you'd need to grow a successful technology company. So we're talking about sales and marketing, finance, those types of things. So there's a really good story here for the UK in terms of talent. So if we go on to the next slide. And we've already talked a little bit about money, so I won't dwell too much on this, other than to say that we've just had a budget in the UK. So that happened yesterday, the day before yesterday, and the government has restated its commitment to research and development funding. So I've talked a little bit already around the investment market in the UK and how strong it is in terms of VC funding, but the UK also has a very favourable tax regime for innovation. So we have the Enterprise Investment Scheme, EIS, and SEIS, which is an even more attractive version for earlier stage companies. So those schemes make it very tax efficient for people to invest in early stage technology companies. and that's driven a lot of early stage investment in the UK. And there's also a lot of government related funding around innovation. So I pulled some of the latest stats actually out of the budget that happened this week. So there's going to be a recommitment to the UK's investment in R&D, £6.1 billion tagged for what's called core research. And also, interestingly, the UK is back in the Horizon programme now, which I think is fantastic news. So 2.7 billion of EU research and Horizon guaranteed money. So there's a really good story around being able to both raise investment from institutional investors, but also government support. And my colleagues in country in Turkey and in Department of Trade can help you navigate that landscape. I can also personally do that if you want to build an AI capability in the UK and you're interested in specific grants or specific academic collaborations or how you might apply for some of these incentives. We're here to help from that perspective. Go on to the next slide. And this one is just talking about something that I call place. So you have great talent, you have access to funding, but you also have a very mature marketplace within the UK and quite an innovative marketplace in terms of consumers. So you have a strong ecosystem of other companies that you can sell to. I think there's 1.3 million businesses in the UK that will be using AI and investing over 200 billion, moving up to 2040. And there's a really strong, sort of relatively tech-savvy consumer base as well. So it's a very good place. It's a big market, but it's not so big geographically that you can't get your arms around it either. So it's not like maybe setting up in the States where it's absolutely ginormous and you have to work out which state you want to be in, and each different state has its own sort of different regimes and regulations and way of treating things. So it's a large market, but it's also a great market for trialing out and getting sort of products to market and getting them towards some sort of scale. So I think the actual UK marketplace itself, alongside the cohort of other AI companies that you'd be working with, which I've already talked around, is a really strong selling point for the UK. So go on to the next slide. So I'll whiz through these. So there's a couple of things I just wanted to highlight. The UK is taking a very strong position on AI safety. Clearly there's the EU AI Act, which is driving a lot of regulation, but the UK has also done a lot of work thinking around how the UK regulatory environment will fit in with the EU AI Act. And I think although there's more work to be done here and there's going to be some announcements coming up over the next few months, I think it's fair to say that the UK is looking at a more innovative sector-led approach to AI regulation, which again, I think plays really nicely to maybe setting up a company here. There's probably going to be more opportunity to trial ideas in different sectors. And with regard to AI safety specifically, I'm sure people will probably know this, but a year ago we held the first Global AI Safety Summit that was hosted by the UK and had representation from across the world, including China and the US, which was a big thing to get both of those nations together. And something called the Bletchley Declarations come out of that, and something called the AI Safety Institute, which is a UK body that's really leading on thinking around AI safety and AI regulation. We'll go on to the next slide. And this is part of looking now at the future and what's happening. So within the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology, DSIT, there's going to be an AI opportunities unit being set up. And in the next month or so, there's going to be an AI opportunities plan coming along, which is well worth looking out for if you're interested in what the UK's plans are around artificial intelligence. So there's a gentleman called Matt Clifford, who is a very well-known AI entrepreneur within the UK, who has been spending the last few months talking to AI entrepreneurs, talking to different government departments, talking to regulators, talking across the whole sector, and has come up with what I think is a fantastic roadmap for the UK. I've been lucky enough to be able to have a look at that and review it. So there's going to be a new unit within DCIT set up specifically to drive the AI opportunity plan through and to implement the proposals there for AI advancement. So that's some really exciting news in terms of how government's going to make sure that the UK continues to be a great place to scale an AI company. And just on to the final slide. So, so what does this all mean? Trying to bring it all together. So I think the UK is going to continue to invest across a number of different areas. So I think the foundational elements of AI are going to become increasingly important. So we're talking about things like compute capability, things like how data is treated as a strategic asset. The UK has some amazing advantages in areas like healthcare with the NHS and the data that's available. So I think we'll probably see some moves to leverage that strategic asset for companies that want to build AI companies and need sort of healthcare data. And I think there's going to be a big focus on skills. So we talked a little bit about some of the high-end skills, sort of PhD level for AI. I think there's going to be continued investment at that end, but also through the school curriculum to make sure that people coming through have the skills they need for AI. There's going to be a continued focus on AI safety. I think there'll be some UK-specific regulations around AI that we'll see coming through over the next few months. And also there'll be an increased drive for AI adoption, both within government and in the public sector, and in areas where the public sector and the private sector combine. So again, this is going to be part, I think, of the work of the AI Opportunities Unit to really start to drive through AI adoption across the UK. The UK is really serious about doing that. And the final point is around driving capability across all levels of the AI stack. So if you think about from foundation models right the way through to applications, I think the UK is keen to keep capability across all of those areas. So I think that's going to be a really interesting one to watch as things develop. So that's the end of my presentation. I hope that was interesting and useful, and I'm happy to take questions from anybody if you have time.